cool. And you guys have a solar home. Can you tell me about that?
Well, I think Margaret should probably start because it relates to EOS, the very beginning of it.
So we built our house beginning in 2006, and that was when EOS Eco Energy was just a fledgling organization. And we had, as EOS, had brought Solar Nova Scotia to town a couple of years running for a weekend workshop called How to Build and Design and Build a Solar Shelter. And following those workshops, a number of us wanted to build a solar home. So we got together with some local other people who had construction skills and decided to build a home. And while the home was being built, I chronicled our experiences, because in the early thousands there wasn't a lot of experience with solar homes. So we did a lot of research on building materials and approaches and decisions we had to make, and I wrote them up in the newspaper, and we levered those articles for some funding for EOS. So some of the earliest grant funding that we got for EOS was thanks to writing up our experiences building the house.
That's so cool.
So where I come in is that I gathered the workers who wanted to build a passive solar home, who had taken the course. And 7 of us gathered together and formed Intergreen Builders Cooperative, which is a worker cooperative that still carries on today. And this was its first home that it built collectively, and it's gone on to win New Brunswick champions for building energy efficient homes. So it's done very well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, so you initially built a passive solar home, is that
Right.
right? That was the initial goal?
Yeah.
The first iteration had also some hot water panels as well, glycol panels to heat hot water. Otherwise, the house itself is designed and oriented to take the best advantage of using the sun for heat energy. So at least 50% of our heating comes from the sun. The other 50% would come from a wood-burning fireplace, a wood stove, and because it's highly efficient and because the wood is a renewable resource, it's very much a net zero energy source.
Right.
That's great.
So our house is about 2,000 square feet, and we burn just over a quart of wood a year. So it's virtually very, very energy efficient. We can heat up the house very quickly with the wood stove, even if it's like 16 degrees in the house, where often is early morning. That'd be about the temperature it gets down to overnight, and we can heat it up. It comes up to 21, 22 degrees in 2 or 3 hours, and that's it.
And the secret to living in a passive solar home is to have a really good envelope within which you can hold the heat. So whatever heat you have, you lose it very slowly, or you retain it with the choice of materials like concrete and stone that hold the heat for a long period of time. So during the night when everything else cools off, the heat can be released from an insulated stone foundation and plaster walls and things like that. So the house holds the heat very well in the winter and holds the coolness in the summer. So it's often a much cooler house to live in during hot summer months.
Yeah, and I bet you really appreciate that, especially this summer.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We don't have air conditioning. We have no other form of heat in the house that's generally used. We have a small electric element in the air circulation as a backup for insurance purposes. And the only time we ever use it is when we want to make sure that it's continuing to work for another year. So that's it. So it's really the wood and the sun. And as Margaret says, it's actually 51%. We've had it scientifically calculated. 51% of our heat comes from the sun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you start building it in 2006? When was it finished?
2007. We moved in May 2007. So we've been in the house 13 and a half years now. Just enough time for us to want to do another paint job on all the walls and things like that. Houses get to that age.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Have you noticed any changes in the house during that time, or it's all been?
Changes as in.
I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things, there's several things that we've learned from the house that we wouldn't do again.
Okay.
One is that the bathroom downstairs is a bit isolated heat-wise, and therefore we sometimes have to provide some supplementary heat if we have grandchildren who want to take a shower.
Okay.
But that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing really substantially different than what we would do now. Since we built the house, we've now put on the solar panels, and so we've now produced our own electricity. We're still grid tied, so we're net zero, and we just about balance every year for the last 3 years now, I think it is, to build it up the amount that we have as a credit with NB Power through the summer, and we use it through the winter. And the other piece of that, the last 2 years, is that we've charged our electric car. So we don't pay for gasoline very often either.
That's great. That's good.
Mhm.
So, what made you decide to install solar panels on your passive solar house? Was that something you always wanted to do, or how did that come about?
We really wanted to also do transportation with electricity,
Mhm.
and it made the most sense for us to generate our own electricity to charge a car. So the car we have right now, we get 50 kilometers on the battery. It's not one of those expensive Teslas, but it's enough that all of our local travel, we're running on electricity that's generated from our rooftop solar panels. So that was a big priority for us. So when we add up how much less we're spending on gasoline, in addition to how much the electricity is subsidizing the living in the house, it's been an added benefit
Mhm.
having the panels.
So we calculate that into how many panels we put on and things like that. So we're just at break even, which is just perfect for the way that the system works with the NB Power. So it was, can't remember what it would actually cost, what our break-even point would, and when our payback period, I guess, would be. Sometimes around 10 to 15 years, someplace like that, I think.
When EOS had the incentive, it was great.
Yeah.
That was really
Yeah.
what made us do it. I think we talked about it for a long time,
Yeah.
and then that incentive was the one that made the difference for us to say, okay, let's do it this fall.
So that would have been in 2015, is that right?
Yeah,
That's about right.
I think so.
Yeah, we were the first in that first group,
Cool. How many solar panels do you have?
16.
Okay.
So we have 16, and
And that was enough for your house plus the car?
Mhm.
Yes.
Is that how it was?
that's right.
Oh, yeah.
And we built the house with that purpose, that it would eventually have solar panels on it.
Okay,
So
so
it
you
was
made
built,
us.
it was solar ready, is what they call it.
Okay.
So there's no shadowing of that. They're very easy to look after.
Mhm.
It's not a big slope. We can get, I've been up there in the winter, just to make sure that the snow doesn't really build up on it and things like that. But they generally look after themselves. We may lose a day or two when the snow packs on and just doesn't want to come off. I think the longest we've had is a week.
Mhm.
But it's not, as we said, you don't gain a lot of electricity in the winter anyway. You get some. But it's more that you're trying to balance things out for the whole year. I mean, this last summer, it's been absolutely wonderful. So, we're doing really well on building up credits for that, so.
Well, and some people will think about wanting to be off-grid and having their own batteries and things like that. We use the NB Power Grid as our backup battery.
Yeah.
So when we have extra electricity, it goes onto the grid. At night, when we're not generating electricity, we pull from the grid. And so when Eric says that we balance out, at the end of the year, it's pretty break even. We're generating as much electricity as we pull in. Now, NB Power charges you
Mhm.
tax on
Every
that power
kilowatt
that
they give
you buy from them, and they also charge an ongoing hookup charge. So it's not costing us nothing.
No.
So you
But
still have a power
we
bill?
we don't have to manage batteries and things like that in our home. In our house, we've got a dishwasher and a washer dryer, all those things. It's no hardship to live here. I think living in a passive solar home has changed our lives in
Mhm.
a significant way, in that every morning we care about the weather.
Right.
If you live in the city often, it doesn't matter, it doesn't impinge upon your day, but if it's gonna be sunny, if it's gonna be dry, we do have a clothesline, we might wanna have a fire. If it's not gonna be sunny for a few days, we'll light a fire in the winter and warm up the house for a few hours, that kind of thing. which you wouldn't normally think about if you have a thermostat.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is we don't hang outside with the door open and chat for long periods of time. We'll close the doors and close the windows and be aware when we might be losing heat that we don't need to lose.
So, and the other thing to that, not losing heat, we have a vestibule at all entrances. So that means that you open the door and then you go into the vestibule and you don't just go right outside.
Mm.
And that's a challenge for a lot of people who like the open concept of housing. You have to build in the vestibule. The reason you have to do that is because you don't have an electric furnace to just pump in the heat all of a sudden. It takes a while for it to come up. Most houses, go up and down in their heating. Ours is like this, just
curve
very
is-
gradual,
Okay.
very gradual. Takes a while for it to get up, takes a while for it to go down. So you don't want to, open the door and let the Jack Frost come in. That's not a good idea.
No, that makes sense. And is the retention of the heat mostly because of the stone foundation?
Yes, a large part of it.
Okay.
It's actually just a slab. There's no foundation. It's just a slab on grade. But it's traditional concrete floors are 4 inches deep. Ours is 8 inches deep, and then it also has the heat ducts inside of it. So there's 23 different heat ducts that come out from the central area, like a spider, to help heat the floor, and that stays in there all night long, and eventually releases back into the house as 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
And we mentioned the insulation, so that stone slab has insulation underneath it that's contiguous with the rest of the envelope. So the whole house is insulated really well.
Mhm.
We also have a very good fresh air intake system because in a highly insulated home, moisture and air quality are issues. So you want to make sure you've got some really good ventilation in it too.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that because you said you obviously don't leave the door or the window open, and I wondered how that worked if you wanted to air out the place.
Yeah, that's part of the building code. You have to have an air exchange, and you want to make it efficient as possible.
Mhm.
So ours is a very slow moving motor. It just circulates the air sufficiently.
And the other thing is that on our upper level we have cathedral ceilings, and there is an air vent that draws the striated heated air at the top back down and into the foundation again and out through the house. So we're also recirculating air. In many homes, you probably know it can get really hot upstairs and it's cold downstairs. We're always bringing the heat downstairs again, so we're making the best use of the heat that is within the house already too.
Yeah. So the difference between heat at this level and on the ground level and the next level up is about 1 or 2 degrees at most at any time.
Okay.
And usually it's closer than that. The other thing that we have unique in this house is the cutout in the floor by the patio doors, and that allows just regular convection currents to circulate the air from the south side of the house where it's warm down to the north side of the house through the stairwell. And so if the power goes out, we can put the wood stove on and the house stays warm throughout just by natural convection, not using the mechanical system or the heat circulating system at all. So it's very comfortable too. That's the other thing about the house, is that as living in it now, we can say it's a very comfortable house. As you know, right now it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's excellent light in the house. Floor is our compass. This point is due south, due east, due west. And in the winter, the sun rises here, and the sun sets here, and then in the summer, it rises here and goes down there. So this was a place we always spoke of as the center of the house, and it just orients everything else after that. So we use very little electricity for lighting the house up until it's dark. We never use the light. We're very conscious of the light in all times of the year. During the sun, during the summer, it's brilliant all throughout a long part of the day. In the winter, we get the snow, and it reflects in the house, and you get even more light. So it's a very pleasant house to live in. Yeah, and temperature-wise, it's very easy. A lot of people worry about whether or not you can walk around on the floor with sock feet and bare feet. No problem at all. Nobody ever complains about cold feet because it's insulated. It's not a cold floor. So
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Margaret, I know you want to talk about money in terms of the passive solar home, and I'm wondering if there is a big cost difference between building a passive solar home new or building a regular house new. Like, is there a big difference? Or
Well, we did build 13 or 14 years ago, but probably the principles haven't changed that much. In fact, there's probably a better choice in building materials.
Yeah.
But when we built, we estimated it cost us probably 10% more per square foot to build for passive solar. And that was mostly associated with the greater amount of insulation. Nowadays, people are building houses to this level of insulation
That's right.
anyway, but back then it was a novelty to put in a good insulated wall and ceiling. So we estimated 10%, but the nice thing about building this way is that you're paying 10% more, and if you're taking a mortgage for your home, you are applying that 10% into a fixed regular cost. If you don't build for energy efficiency and solar heat, you're actually at the mercy of the markets around cost of oil and gas and things like that that you would use to heat your house, so that you can't actually predict the cost to live in it. Here, we know how much it costs every month. Erica said, we buy a load of wood in the fall, we produce electricity now. Our biggest expense in this house is our property taxes.
Right.
Everything else, all the utilities are very inexpensive for us to live here. So when people are thinking about the cost, that's one element of it, is if you incorporate it into your mortgage, it becomes a fixed cost and it's manageable. The other thing is the environmental cost. There are some materials that you do not want to biodegrade, like your insulation, for example. So we had a lot of trouble reconciling the fact that some highly manufactured products were the ones we actually wanted in our home, like the extruded polystyrene we have underneath the floor, under the concrete, because it doesn't hold moisture and it's the best insulator. But generally, overall, the lifetime of this house, our environmental footprint is very, very small, just because once we're in it, we're living so well and in congruity with the environment.
So, for example, when we chose to insulate the walls, we didn't use fiberglass or spray foam for that. We used ground up newspaper, cellulose, but it's compacted under compression so that it doesn't settle in the wall. And it's 5 or 6 inches deep, and therefore it's a very good insulation. It's actually recommended by LEED, L-E-E-D program, for leadership in energy and efficiency design, as a product that's highly rated because of that, and it's just ground up newspaper. So that's the other thing around energy. You don't have to use the most expensive products, and it doesn't have to be harmful to the environment. You can find some innovative way of doing it. The other thing that Margaret mentioned that about the difference of 10%, that was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That difference is much less now because the building codes now are much more energy efficient, and you have to build to a higher level than you did 13 years ago. So the difference between a normal house and our house was greater. That's reduced now. So I suspect it's less 2 or 3% that difference now.
And there are so many more designs for solar homes too. Back then we had this specifically designed for us by a solar home designer. Nowadays there's all sorts of them. And basically for a passive solar home, you want to pay attention to the percentage of glass on the south, because there's an optimum percentage where you don't lose more heat than you gain, because windows also lose heat during the winter, and the other, or during the nighttime. The other is that you want to be oriented toward the south to get the maximum solar gain.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done here. Our house doesn't have a basement, so there's no foundation, which means that we have less stuff. because we can't put it in the basement. You know, we have what you see is what you get storage, which is also a really good way to live. At least our generation, there's a lot of us who have a
And
lot
the
of
other thing
stuff.
that's changed even since we built this, now the insurance companies would prefer you not to build with a basement.
Really?
Because they do not want them to be finished and then flooding, which is occurring more and more often. So they give a preferred rate for insurance for a passive solar home that's a slab on grade. like this is.
Interesting.
So-
And we don't have to worry about tornadoes around here, so
Mhm.
we're good that way, you know.
Yeah.
No shelter. That's the first thing I thought of.
That's Dorothy and
And the yeah, and Toto in the
and yeah, okay. That's right.
I don't know.
Well, so one of the challenges is we don't have a root cellar in the basement, right? So when we're thinking about food storage. So our house, if you notice, it has that berm up the back on the north side. So there is soil built up against the back of the house where our garage is. In the back of the garage, we do have a little room that is not insulated away from the soil that's built up there. So it is a really nice cold room during the winter. It's not great in the summer because everything's kind of warm in the summer,
Mhm.
but we do have an ability to keep food cool out there in the winter. So that has partially solved that issue.
Mhm.
Nice.